Hello and welcome. I'm happy to join you for this brand new episode of Business Africa, focused on the Paris Summit on Africa's economies, which took place on May 18th. Here are the top stories. French President Emmanuel Macron is calling for new and ambitious solutions to help the continent cope with the shock caused by the coronavirus pandemic. How can we finance the economies? There's demand for funding based on decentralized cooperation. Now, would this model help boost the development of African economies? And we venture to Djibouti. The country's decided to industrialize fishing, but the sector suffers from lack of funding. Paris hosted the summit on financing African economies on May 18th. Several heads of state responded to the invitation of French President Emmanuel Macron, who also announced it would cancel Sudan's debt.
How can Africa finance its economies? According to World Trade Organization's Professor Luanga Mokela-Faustin, African countries need to rethink their economic models as their budgets are too weak.
We cannot finance development with a small amount of resources with the needs that Africa has. We need to think differently. Europe finances its development through debt. For example, the state borrowed money from banks to finance infrastructure. Asia did not follow this model. Asian countries finance infrastructure construction through partnership mechanisms. Companies with the resources of advanced countries, such as Japan, China, and Korea, have invested in projects that they operate, finance, and are repaid. This is an approach that Africa can follow.
According to this economist, the state has to step in, particularly because of the impact of the Covid-19 pandemic.
There is a need to rethink the model because with the crisis of COVID, without the intervention of the states, the banks would have collapsed. The state injected in the northern countries a lot of money at zero rates, but Africa can't do that. Their currencies are not convertible. They do not have enough reserves. And the central banks often have a constitution with the IMF that does not allow them to monetize their debt, like issuing bonds, in order to allow for financing. It is necessary to rethink this, to make rules more flexible and help Africa. And this requires international cooperation so that this can be done.
French President Emmanuel Macron, the organizer of the summit, and his guests, the African leaders, would definitely be glad about the targets met tonight, as all delegates have agreed that there can be no exit from the economic crisis without an exit from the health crisis, the coronavirus pandemic.
African leaders also discussed the possibility of additional credits through special drawing rights at the IMF. The African allocation should be increased from $33 to $100 billion.
Several economists on the continent believe that African solutions must be found to African problems to achieve the economic development that our states dream of. We speak to two economists. Togo's Kako Nabuko, economist and special advisor to the president of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, and we speak to Congo's Noel Chani, based in the United States and founder of Congo Business Network and the company Agere Global. Hello to you both, and thank you for coming on to Business Africa. The first question I address to you, Mr. Nabuko. What are the solutions to be considered to achieve better economic development in Africa?
Well, this is the thesis that I presented in my last book, The African Emergency, the subtitle of which was, "Let's change the growth model." That is to say that you can only succeed in the structural transformation of your savings if you agree to develop the secondary sector, which is the industrial sector. But when you look at the jobs created in Africa in the last 30 years, out of 10 jobs created in Africa, you only have 6 in agriculture, 3 in the tertiary sector, and you only have 1 in the industrial sector. And therefore, it is absolutely necessary to transform the raw materials. This is how we can create value, This is how we can create jobs.
And
that is how we can hope to solve the problem of the massive unemployment of our youth.
Résoudre le problème du chômage massif de nos jeunes.
Mr. Chani, how do you answer the question? Should we have a common economic model for Africa?
No, I don't think we have to go with a universal model that applies from Tunisia to South Africa. Why do we tend to see Africa as a country? Africa is made up of 54 countries that have different cultures, different languages, and the business environment, which is different too. So you have to go with a personalized model at a local level, not even at the country level, but at the provincial level or even at the city level. On the one hand, the public sector, but especially the private sector.
So should the economic development of Africa be decided in Paris or in Africa? How do we get out of the old model?
Nous n'avons pas le choix.
We have no other choice. We either grow or we perish. You have a continent where the population doubles every 25 years, where the median age is 15, where 2/3 of the population is under 35. So, if you do not give these young people the opportunity to access employment, well, the people are not going to die in silence. And so, you're going to have cycles of instability that won't be manageable, not just for Africa, but for the whole planet. And that is why it is imperative today to understand that the future of Africa is its internal market, and therefore the monetary and financial issue is the financing of the African domestic market. We can no longer carry on with this model that we have had for a century, which is giving our raw materials to the rest of the world. It can't go on anymore. So, whatever the meetings, the summits, the seminar, the gatherings that will be carried out, we will not escape this situation, which is the creation of jobs on the continent.
On n'échappera pas à cette donne qui est la création d'emplois sur le continent.
Mr. Chani, to achieve this development, must we still resort to loans when countries are dragging debts already considered unsustainable by some international financial organizations?
The problem is not the debt or the level of debt. The problem is the management of this debt and the African countries. Why is debt badly managed? Because our people who are in politics or who have positions in politics use this kind of position. It becomes like private companies taking money to put in their pockets and give to their families. This is where the problem lies. So the problem is not borrowing more and more. The problem is managing the current debt and ensuring that when there are donations from common countries such as France, the United States, or other countries, these donations go to a few projects which are necessary and ensure that there is real development.
Mr. Mnubuku, do you agree debt is not a problem?
The debt is not a problem. The problem is what you do with this debt. If you are funding the structural transformation of economies, that is a very good thing. But if you fund consumption that will not empower you, well, you're going to enter a vicious cycle. And so, all that matters is the vision. From the moment where you can have a vision that is shared with the whole population, we can talk about what is available in terms of instruments.
On peut discuter de l'opportunité des instruments.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mnubuku, economist and special advisor to the President of the Commission for the West African Monetary and Economic Union. And thanks again to Mr. Noel Chani, based in the United States, founder of Congo Business Network and the company Agere Global. Welcome to the second part of Business Africa. Now on the Horn of Africa, at the end of the Red Sea, there's Djibouti, and it wants to profit from its geographical location. It also wants to be a powerful force in the fight against pirates and terrorism, and now the country's betting on the fishing industry.
It's only 6 a.m. and boats are entering the Djibouti fishing port turn by turn. Around 100 tons of fish products are landed here every day. Hassan and his partners have no time to lose and must sell their cargo quickly.
Our cargo arrives every day and we sell it directly to people on the spot. Sometimes we have customers who place orders before we even arrive.
We use up to 15,000 tons of fish a year, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, but the sector remains essentially small-scale and the country has set itself the challenge of modernizing this sector. The company behind this ambition is called Djibouti Seafood. Its particularity is that its capital is 100% owned by Djiboutians.
We want Djiboutians to be aware of the wealth we possess, that they possess. What makes us different is that we take hygiene into account. Essentially, these are products where we make sure that consumers can consume products that have been cleaned and checked by experts.
About 15 tons of fish products are processed here every week. 60% of this production is destined for export. A few months after its creation, the company managed to penetrate the demanding US market.
We can export to the US, we can export to Canada, we can also export all over Europe. We're the only company that has licenses which are rare in East Africa.
Djibouti has a 372 kilometers coastline, but does not take advantage of this. Fishing contributes less than 1% of the country's gross domestic product.
That's all for this episode of Business Africa. You can re-watch the episode on our website in French and in English. I'm Ruth Lago, and I'll see you soon.